Oh, hey, I'm glad you're here. Do you remember in Scream when the voice says, "Do you like scary movies?" And you thought, "I do." And then later on hoped that you aren't the Jamie Kennedy character to all your friends? Well, the thing is, people can discover horror films, but then what? Then where? Video stores mostly are long gone, so you either have friends or algorithms. And maybe you don't have horror friends, which just leaves a pay for play publicity. Algorithms. So there's Google, right? I mean, type in horror movies and you'll find soulless lists of the same 25 horror movies or 50 best horror movies, and it's all just cut and paste, it feels like, of the exact same list. It's irritating for some of us, but maybe you haven't seen The Shining or Poltergeist. But once you're done with that, then what? That is precisely what this episode is. I wanted to reach out to horror movie loving friends and have us champion 30 plus horror movies in hopes that this October we can help you discover something you haven't heard of or seen, or maybe you forgot about. Maybe not. Either way, this is a celebration and I hope you love it. Before we get to that though, I wanted to mention, as I say in this episode, we're not exclusively covering horror for October, but there are some podcasts that are doing kind of that. So I'd like to give them a few shout outs. First up is the New World Pictures podcast is celebrating Corntober. Yep, that's hashtagged, in which they cover the Children of the Corn films and feature interviews, etc. So maybe you'll hear me there, who's to say. Definitely check out the New World Pictures podcast. Also, Lindsay Wilkins at the Schlock and Awe podcast is focusing on the Halloween franchise. Maybe you'll hear me over there. Who's to say, really? Also, Daniel Epler, who hosts the Cobwebs podcast, is doing 3 episodes on the Psycho franchise and 2 episodes in between those. And those might be spooky as well, who's to say? Lastly, I wanted to champion Sean Robert, Paxton Holly, and Michael May over at the Crestwood House podcast. They are an excellent horror hang for the month of October. That's the Crestwood House podcast. So please check out, rate, review, subscribe to all these wonderful people, or they'll haunt you. Not now, but when they die. All of them. They don't even have a say in the matter, really. They asked me not to, but I have this monkey paw and a stone machine that juices babies, so Dirk's calling the shots. Sorry. But let's get to the episode. The movies are 30 plus horror recommendations, the guests are totally rad, and this is VHS Presents October 2022 Horror Movie Recommendations. Hello and welcome to VHS. I'm your host Dirk Marshall and I'd like to welcome you to our Halloween horror hangout. Of course, it would be creepy if I was alone, but there is spooky in numbers, so I'm joined by not one but 2 ghoulish guests. First of all, I'd like to welcome back Carmelita Valdez McKoy. Welcome.
Hello, Dirk. Thank you so much for having me back.
Nice to see you again after our crow hangout.
I know, but this is going to be epic.
Yes, I agree. And secondly, host of Schlock and Awe podcast, it's Lindsay Wilkins. Welcome.
Hey, thanks for letting me on to talk horror movies. I'm very, very excited.
I'm so excited. I came up with this idea. You both were down. We got it right on the schedule. I'm super excited to have this conversation. So I know many podcasts really focus on horror for October, but this podcast covers horror kind of year round. So we're not really doing horror themed October. This episode is our spooky special for the season. And so we'll each be recommending 10 horror movies for the month, which means at the end of this episode, you'll have 30 horror recommendations to fill your eyes and ear holes with. 10 movies to champion doesn't seem like a lot, but how is the process for you both? Lindsay?
I have 16 recommendations, so I'm going to be narrowing this down. No, it was... First of all, I'm just going, yay, I get to recommend horror movies. Oh no, what do I recommend? It was just a process of going, okay, so what do I generally watch multiple times? What do I own? What do I keep going back to? And still that was a lot of movies. So it's going to be me just picking things out of thin air and seeing how they work.
Perfect. Carmelita, how about yourself?
So I gave myself a little bit of a challenge.
Okay.
I wanted to avoid like the big ones, the big classics that we all love and talk about. Wanted to give some love to some things that maybe don't get talked about as much. I avoided franchise films entirely. And I was kind of going for like a vibe, like a mood.
Nice. I just did 10 Hellraiser sequels. That's what I did. So it's really phoned it in for this one.
Done deal.
Yeah.
That does not surprise me at all.
Yeah, it was really fun for me. Like, I didn't know where I was gonna start, but I just know that there's a power in someone just mentioning a movie. Like, these aren't gonna be deep
Mhm.
dives, obviously, but sometimes
Mm.
just someone putting something on your radar is enough for you to like check something out, and that can steer you off into something completely strange or remind you of something you loved that you haven't watched in years. So I think there's a lot of opportunities for people here, and I think we just gotta get right into it. The way this will go is we'll just go around taking turns. First, we'll start with Lindsay, then Carmelita, and then myself. Without further ado, Lindsay, please kick it off for us with one of your 10 picks.
Okay, I think I'm just going to go for the first one I mentioned. I'm going to go for Carl Fruin's Mad Love from 1935. This has just been released on a Warner Archive Classic. Before that, it was actually very hard to find a dodgy DVD of this movie. It's a 1930s horror movie, but essentially it is a remake of a 1919 German movie, A Hands of Orlok, and would also be remade into Body Parts. So you can kind of, if you don't know Body Parts, you're going to get the vibe of this movie. It's got an amazing 30s cast because it's got Peter Lorre, Colin Clive from the Frankenstein movies, Universal, and also Francis Drake, who popped up a lot. But Peter Lorre is a mad scientist, and I don't want to give too much away, even though this movie is over 90 years old. But
No spoilers.
no spoilers for a 90-year-old movie.
Don't you dare.
But it goes into some really dark places. This is just on the cups when the Hays Code was just coming out. And so they were still able to get away with a lot. And it is sort of the best kind of mad scientist, what have you done to me, possible killer hand movie you've ever seen. And even that's not really a spoiler because what else happens in this movie is insane. I think the first time I heard about it was on a podcast and they just described the ending, which should be a spoiler. But I was like, what is this? Because they were explaining it in such great detail. I didn't actually know what they were talking about. Right. It's like if you heard the ending to Nope, which I'm not going to spoil, but if someone described that movie to you cold, you would not understand what that is until you saw it. And this is kind of like Mad Love. You have to watch it to go, it's only like an hour and 20 minutes or a bit less than that. And there's a drunk maid talking to a mannequin, which is a whole entire subplot, which I adore.
Yeah, I love this movie. We're going to be talking about gateway horror picks at one point in this episode. That just reminded me because I loved Peter Lorre as a child. I mean, when I was a child, not when he was a child. And and I found him because of Looney Tunes cartoons. Like Looney Tunes were a gateway for all these actors that I would have no right to know. Like it was so far. I was also obsessed with the stuff that played on Nick at Night because they played Mary Tyler Moore and all this stuff. And I was like, it was in my face. But it's just interesting now thinking about like how Looney Tunes introduced me to this film. But this is something that probably the first thing I saw Peter Lorre in, and I was just obsessed with him. He's great.
Yeah, before there was The Simpsons, there was Looney Tunes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I didn't know Peter Lorre until I saw Peter Lorre and went, wait. Then you had Ren and Stimpy, because I think Ren was just a caricature of Peter Lorre melting down in The Maltese Falcon.
Yeah.
And when you finally watch a Peter Lorre movie, you're just going, he looks familiar. Why do I know him? And it's just because he's been throughout your entire childhood.
Yes, that's so true. Fantastic. Carmelita, what's your first pick?
So my first pick is Creep from 2004.
Oh.
Now this is important because there's many Creeps.
Yes.
Yes.
There are several movies titled Creep, but this is Creep from 2004 out of the UK. And this is the first of several UK films on my list. Didn't do that on purpose. It just kind of shook out that way. It's directed by Christopher Smith. It's really cool. It stars Franca Potenta. She was in Run Lola Run.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Love her. So this is a cool premise. A woman gets trapped in an underground station in London, and then she's being hunted basically. And it's like dark and it's underground. It's this abandoned station. She's like locked in the station because she fell asleep on the platform, and mayhem and terror ensue. It's dark. It's grimy. If you've ever spent time in a subway station, they're dirty and gross.
Yeah.
And she's trapped. She's running. She's crawling into tight, dirty spaces. She comes across some kids that are living underground. This film is gory. It's kind of gross in certain parts. And then it also has a dark sense of humor. It's a lot of fun. It's not without its faults. I'm not saying it's a masterpiece, but if you just want to have a good time being creeped out and grossed out, this film will do it.
And that's Creep from 2004?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. The poster has the train, the back of a train on it.
Yeah, I remember really enjoying it. I'm putting that on the list to rewatch, actually. That's
It's now on my list because it looks like kind of like the cover to Midnight Meat Train, but
yes.
without what's his name
But
standing in there.
better.
Yeah. No, this is going on my list. I have not seen this, so I'm excited, which is probably going to be the theme of this episode. Lindsay has not seen this.
Well, that's half the fun is
Yeah.
Yes.
not only do we get to bring 10 films to the table, but then we get 20 recommendations
Yeah.
on top of that. So win for us.
Fantastic. My first pick is going to be Gaki-Dama, also known as The Demon Within. This is from 1988. It stars a Gaki-Dama, which I believe translates to baby goblin. You can find this on YouTube. That doesn't have an official release anywhere, but the YouTube version looks just as good as the bootleg I bought, if not better, which is upsetting. It's a Japanese body horror. It's only 55 minutes. So it's one of a couple that I picked that are very short because, you know, sometimes we want to cram as much in as we can in October. So, and I don't want to go too much into the plot. You already know that there's a baby goblin. It has one scene that's what people really talk about when they're talking about this film, but I won't even list off that because I think it's 55 minutes. You should just go into it knowing Gaki-Dama. If you want to look up anything, just look up Gaki-Dama 1988 and just to see the cover because it's got this great drawing of what the baby goblin looks like, and it's what I fell in love with. I've watched this probably 6 or 7 times. It's just a real delight for baby goblin movies. Gaki-Dama.
I have never even heard of this.
Me neither. Another movie that's going on my list because, you know, demons I love, and this is just going to be.
Yeah, it's
well,
not
baby demons.
Yeah,
yes, baby demons even.
It's not like it's revolutionary in any means, but it's like it's well done. I like the acting, the mood. It's dark. It does get kind of gross. It gets all the buttons and things pushed that you want for an October kind of thing. I found it when I was really deep in the internet hole of like ghoulies and things. No surprise, but I was just like trying to find every kind of spin-off of Gremlins that ever happened, and so came across Gaki-Dama. Lindsay, what is your second pick?
My second pick, okay, I'm going Italian, but I'm not going to go sleazy Italian. I think in terms of the great giallo, I think sometimes Mario Bava, even though he did Bay of Blood, sometimes gets a little forgotten. So I'm going to go for my favorite, and that is Blood and Black Lace from 1964. Starring Cameron Mitchell of all people, which is the great Italian tradition of getting someone's sibling, more or less famous sibling in their movie. This movie's gorgeous. I mean, just the way that Bava's like a cinematographer in training and just made these beautiful, beautiful movies no matter what he was doing. Yeah, Blood and Black Lace kind of set the template of people in a fashion house being murdered by a masked, gloved person who you don't know until the end who's doing it. And it's absolutely gorgeous to look at. Every frame of this is just textured to the hilt. And I absolutely love it, even though it can be very statuesque at times because literally they're models and they are very statuesque. But no, I love this movie. Yeah, I think just because giallo is meant to be so outlandish and so gory and so sleazy, I think sometimes people forget about the classy one. And that is, of course, Bava all the way.
Nice.
Yeah, this is actually on my list of things to introduce Sarah to this year.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
She hasn't seen it.
It's a good one to introduce to because you're not going into the full-on Fulci gore or the full-on absolute sleaze of your door, your thing is a locked room or something, whatever it is.
Yeah, I made the mistake of introducing her to Devil's Honey.
No.
And when he played the saxophone to her lady parts, Sarah was like, "I don't want to watch this," and I was like, "Fair, that's fair. This was a bad choice on my part."
But yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, the thing that surprised me about Devil's Honey the most is how it went more crazy after that. Like you hear about the saxophone, and then you're like going, so no one is talking about the gun or this abusive relationship or her completely how is no one talking about the rest of this movie? Yeah. The saxophone is actually the not less crazy thing in this movie.
It's true. And she'll never see it. So, but this movie, she definitely will. Carmelita, what is your second pick?
So my second pick is Veronica, or it's a Spanish film, so Veronica.
Oh, I love this movie.
With the accent.
Yes.
2017. Mm-hmm. I love this film, directed by Paco Plaza. Great cast of young people in this. A girl who makes the big mistake of playing with the Ouija board.
Classic.
Never play with the Ouija board.
And this is based on a case, loosely based on a case of a real kind of unexplained, mysterious death. But yeah, girl plays with the Ouija board. It's Bad News Bears.
Yeah.
Leave that Ouija board alone.
This is the movie that has a stain under a mattress. Is that correct?
Yes.
Oh my God.
Yes.
So
There's this
creepy.
darkness creeping into her life that's coming for her and her siblings. She's the eldest of 4 kids with a single mother. She wanted to play with the Ouija board to talk to her father, who had an early and unexpected death.
Mm-hmm.
And she misses her dad, and her mom's always working, trying to support the family. And this poor girl just, there's a creepy nun in this.
Yes.
I love creepy nuns.
Really creepy nun.
It's really fun.
This actually generally frightened me at moments, which I think Spanish horror has a habit of doing.
Yeah.
Especially modern Spanish horror. Like if you go back to Rec, which me and Dirk did a whole discussion on, and that movie is generally scary.
Yeah.
And so is Veronica. It is a generally scary movie at parts that I'm just like, oh shit. This is a great movie.
There was another movie, I think it was Spanish also, Terrified. Is that ring a bell with anything?
Oh, there was Argentinian.
Okay, Argentinian, yeah. That had some moments.
I haven't seen that one, but that's been on my list for quite some time.
Oh, no, it's definitely worth it. I don't know if it's a cohesive movie, but there are certain moments in it where you're just like, oh, shit. Yeah.
Yeah, it has a couple of moments. And sometimes, honestly, that's enough for me. Like if I'm just like, oh, I didn't see that coming. I'm just like, good for you, because a lot of times things are telegraphed in movies so far. We're like, okay, I get it. Here comes the killer once again. My second pick is The Deadly Mr. Frost from 1990. It's also known as Mr. Frost, which is how I knew it. We had the promo tape in my dad's video store. It opens with Alan Bates showing up at Jeff Goldblum's house because some burglars found a body in his car. And Jeff's like, oh yeah, I just finished burying the body. And Alan Bates is like, what? And yeah, it turns out Jeff Goldblum's been killing people and burying them in the yard. And he also takes pictures he makes food just to take a photo of it. And then he throws the food in the trash. He doesn't eat it. It's really awesome.
Ahead of his time.
Yeah, really
great. He's super Jeff Goldblum in this. It's part of his like overseas European 80s part, which is my favorite phase of Jeff Goldblum's career. He goes to a mental hospital, and then Kathy Baker, who's awesome, attempts to figure out if he's the devil or not. That's the whole movie. It's kind of more of a psychological thriller, but tonally, I think it fits really well with this month. And it's because it's overseas. I think a lot of it's filmed maybe in Italy. It has this really cool foreign aesthetic. And when I was a kid watching it, I was just like, that's what it's like to be overseas. Like it feels all strange and weird and surreal, and people catch flies out of the air and listen to it. And it's just like, oh, love this. So I just wanted to throw that out there because I don't think it has a very good release, but Mr. Frost is definitely worth watching.
Well, I'm sold. I've never seen this, but I need to now.
Yeah, this is like Goldblum after The Fly, but for Jurassic Park. So yeah, you're right. He's in this kind of weird period. Looks amazing.
Christopher Walken, before Christopher Walken was aware that he's Christopher Walken, it's like when he's in Dead Zone and stuff where you're just like, there's no one like you at all. And that's Jeff Goldblum in this period. Every choice he makes, you're just like, oh, that is delicious. And no one would have chose that but you. So I just, Mr. Frost is one of my favorites, which brings us to number 3 pick from you, Lindsay.
Okay, mine very sort of horror adjacent, but I think it really still fits feeling of Halloween, and I'm going Atlantics, or I can't actually do how you say it in French, but it is directed by Mati Diop. It's a cynical ass movie from actually 2019. This movie is incredible. You can find this on Netflix. I think it won a special award at Cannes. It is essentially about a group of girls whose boyfriends leave Senegal to go over to Europe to try and find work, and of course, because of that, they're on the boats and they sink into the ocean. And it's a haunting story. These boys come back in the most unexpected kind of way.
Ooh.
I don't think I watched this. I remember hearing about it.
Yeah, it kind of got talked about and then it disappeared. And it is really, really fantastic. Mati Diop, she's from a family of very creative filmmakers, African filmmakers. And this is such an amazing story. It's about a young woman who's trying to find her place in Senegal when she is expected to be married. There's a scene with a marriage bed where something happens. And just the way that Maddie lights it with these like harsh fluorescent lights, it's actually creepier than it would be if there were shadows, because you just got this harsh light on it. It's incredible. I would really recommend watching this. It is really spooky in some parts. Just the atmosphere of the ocean, which is just forever going to take all these young people who are trying to find work. Also those left behind. It's really good.
Sold.
Yeah, same.
Carmelita, your third pick?
So third pick, I'm going with The Night House from 2020.
This was also on my list, so I don't have to talk about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was between this or The Ritual.
Yeah, both great.
David Bruckner
Yeah.
is the director for both of those. And I decided to go with this one because I feel like 2020, the world was shut down and there was a lot going on. And so stuff like this, either people binge watched a lot of stuff and it just like you just didn't hear about it anymore. Things were like a blip and then they would just kind of disappear, or people missed it altogether because life was crazy. But I fell in love with this film. I love supernatural horror. Anything supernatural, I'm like, that's, I think, probably my favorite horror subgenre. And this has a great way of mixing those supernatural elements with the very real world experience of grief and betrayal and hopelessness. I think it's just gorgeously done. I really, really enjoy this film.
I love this film as well. I think everything you said, I adore this movie. And yeah, because it came out in 2020, it did get lost. But again, yeah, there's some really creepy moments in this movie that kind of make you go, ooh, that got me.
Yeah. Well, and for anyone who's not aware, so the premise, just kind of quickly, is that a woman's husband dies suddenly. He takes his own life. She's dealing with her grief. And then strange things start to happen in the home that they shared. And through experiencing this possible haunting, she starts digging into the details of her husband's life. And her life is kind of spiraling.
Rebecca Hall plays the wife, and she gives this amazing speech. Essentially, a student's mother is very upset that she missed something, an important assessment that he was trying to make up for. And she's doing the whole typical, well, if you were there to do your job, my son wouldn't have failed. And then point blank, just a dead face, she goes, yeah, well, my husband just shot himself yesterday. So I was unable to be there for your son. And the walk back this woman has to do, it's one of my, it's such a good moment.
I love that scene because the teacher, in her grief, your kid didn't get the grade that you wanted them to get. Okay, so she says, yeah, okay, you want a B? I'll give him a B. I'll change it right now. He can have a B. And then the mother's kind of like, whoa, that's not what I said. And it's like, but that's what you came here for, right? Oh, do you want an A? I'll give
She like, yeah, she completely calls her out on her bullshit. It has nothing to do with the movie except for where Rebecca Hall's mind is, that she is she is lost in grief and just does not care about anything else. And so she is kind of very happy just to cut the bullshit when she's making her friends very uncomfortable, and they're trying to cheer her up because she's going through grief and they don't know how to deal with her. And she's just talking about what happened to her husband very matter-of-factly and almost joking about it. Like she's kind of reveling and making other people uncomfortable and murky as she is. And the fact that it's Rebecca Hall doing it, I think she can pull it off very, very well compared to another actor trying to get that tone. it's wonderful. And that's just the beginning of it. Yeah, you're just like, oh, okay, we're in for it.
It's also really gorgeous, the film. Like, the cinematography of it's fantastic. The performances are awesome. It's one of those films that deals with loss and trauma and those types of things. Sarah and I will just talk about forever just because of how they handle the subject matter. It's one of a few movies that we watched and she said she wanted to watch it again just to really kind of dig in deeper to the themes of everything. And once they get to the part about kind of what the Night House maybe is, I was all in. I was like, I love everything that's happening here. Yeah, the Night House is masterful. Which brings me to my third pick, which is slightly different than that. It's Bloody Muscle Bodybuilder from Hell from 1995.
I count on you for this.
Yeah.
Yes.
I knew you were gonna bring recommendations. Like, this is what I'm here for.
I know. And this is the one I have seen because I'm like, this is a very Dirk movie. So I'm gonna have to know this new movie at some point. So I'm going to watch it. Actually, no, I ended up watching it on Doja Copy on YouTube for something I did with Matt on Film Feast years ago. But this movie's fun.
Yeah, so this is now out on Blu-ray.
Great cover.
Yeah,
it is a really great. Yeah,
put it out. It comes with a little poster and stickers. It's a really cool package. This is also known as the Japanese Evil Dead. So it's clocking it at about 62 minutes. Again, it's not long, especially for the chaos that it throws out there. It follows a bodybuilder who's trapped inside a haunted house, and it's packed with tons of gore gags and crazy effects. I recommend it for anyone that likes any of the words that I've just said. You won't be let down by what this film provides, although you may be confused at how this man is a bodybuilder. He is not.
No, he's rather small.
Yeah.
From memory.
Very weird. But.
Yeah, to be fair, the YouTube copy I found was absolute shite, so it wasn't like a great viewing experience, but I think I got the gist of it. And then the Blu-ray came out, so
this Blu-ray is gorgeous, and it has tons of bonus footage, way longer than the movie even. It's very fun to hear people talk excitedly about movies, which is why we're doing this. But yeah, so I recommend that from Visual Vengeance. That's Bloody Muscle Bodybuilder from Hell.
What a title.
Yeah.
oh, that is, yeah. And I believe there is a sequel as well somewhere out there.
Yeah. It's not as good. Lindsay, what's your pick for 4? These aren't numbered. We're just using that to structure it, sort of.
Okay, so since you went with a crazy one, I'm going to go for an absolute crazy one. I don't think I can call this a good movie, but I think you'll be entertained. And I don't think any recommend list I can do is going to have a Canuxploitation on there somewhere. But I'm going Kathy's Curse from 1977.
Oh, wow.
One of the most misogynistic, insane, why is that little girl seducing that old man movies you will ever see. I can't remember the order of this movie. It's essentially the Exorcist ripoff. A little girl is possessed by someone's hateful father who was chasing after a woman. I don't know. I don't know. But anyway, this little girl who's probably about 11 is getting an old man drunk while sitting in his lap. It is very uncomfortable. Nothing completely sexual, but you're just watching the image going, no.
I got the Kathy's Curse button and it lights up.
And it lights up. Dear listeners, this is a thing to behold.
Oh my God,
Kathy's
this
Curse
movie.
button with light up eyes.
Oh my God, that is a treasure.
Yeah, I love Kathy's Curse. This is wild.
It's wild.
Yeah.
The performances are something else.
Oh my God, the poor mother who's going insane is just screaming at the top of her lungs at nothing. You've got this little sweet little girl just screaming the most misogynistic things you've ever heard in a movie, and you don't know why.
It's bonkers.
It's bonkers. Yeah, it's truly one of those bonkers horror movies that you're just like going, why? All the choices, why? But you will have a good time with it.
I love the genre of films of people being like watching a movie and then they go, well, I could do that. But like their version of it is so different that you're just like, you didn't do that. People can say this is The Exorcist, but this is very much not The Exorcist. This is not.
I got introduced to this by our friend Daniel Epler of the Cobwebs podcast.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We did an episode on this paired with The Omen.
Oh, yes, you did. I remember this.
That was my introduction. I regret nothing.
Yeah.
But this movie is crazy.
Yes. Carmelita, what is your 4th pick?
I think this movie is really fun. I was almost offended by the letterbox reviews I was seeing of this film.
Malignant.
No.
I'm just kidding.
You know what? No, I champion this film. And damn it, I am going to bat for this movie. I think everyone should check it out. I think it's fun. It's Outcast from 2010. It's a UK Ireland production. It's directed by Cole McCarthy. It's starring a bunch of people that you've seen on Game of Thrones, Doctor Who. It's got all of those actors, British, Scottish, Irish actors that you've seen on every big international television sensation that stars actors from the UK. They're all in there. James Nesbitt, Kate Dickie, Niall Brutton, Karen Gillian, all of them. And so the basic premise of this story is a woman and her teenage son are on the run. They move into Edinburgh, Scotland. They're running from something. She uses protective magic. She's trying to shield them from some danger. They're being hunted. And we meet the hunter. And right around the time that they move into this estate in Edinburgh, murders start happening. And it slowly unfolds. How do all these puzzle pieces fit together? But it's really cool. It's working class Edinburgh. It's youth roaming around the estate. It's dark. And when I say dark, like it's a dark story, but also it's Scotland. So the skies are gray and it's raining all the time. It feels like fall. So it's got that vibe for October. And the witchcraft in this, it's all of this kind of folk magic. And I love that a lot of the magic in this is protective spells because you don't see a lot of that in films. They didn't have a big budget. The way that they do some of the showing the effects of the magic and how the mother is protecting her son through these protective sigils that she paints in the house and on her body. And it's really cool. I really enjoy it. There's some effects towards the end that aren't the best, but this is an independent film. Doesn't have a big budget. It's the intent that counts. For me, it's the way they use it in the story that matters, not how great the CGI looked on a film in this range of budget. So I really enjoy it. It's fun.
And that's Outcast?
Outcast from 2010.
2010. Adding it to the list.
Yes.
I love stories about magic. There's a lot of light and dark magic in this.
Yeah. Which movies are awesome. So that sounds absolutely amazing.
I can't think of the name right now, but what was the movie with the man that goes to the lady's house and she needs help with some sort of spell stuff? So he starts like
a dark song.
A dark song.
I almost put that on here.
Me too. Actually, I was thinking of
it. That movie, it's one of those that I don't think people are talking about because it's of when it came out or what, but I want to keep people talking about it so that they eventually will check it out because
yes, please.
I loved it.
I did too.
But you said Outcast, so that's perfect. 2010. My number 4 pick is The Boneyard from 1988. I just had to get Norman Fell and Phyllis Diller on this list somewhere.
Of course, of course you did.
Yeah. Basically, it's a funeral home where somebody's been keeping monsters at bay with human sacrifices, but then that guy gets put in jail. He can't keep those monsters at bay, and so they possess Phyllis Diller, who plays Miss Poopenplatz, and her dog, which is a poodle. The dog getting possessed is probably the best part of the movie by far. I really like this weird, quirky film. Phyllis Diller, I love her. The Blu-ray's got a picture of the poodle on the front.
Oh, wow. That's intense.
Yeah. But
that is an intense dog.
Can you see Phyllis Diller possessed there? Is that coming in at all?
Kind of.
Yeah.
I see a lot of hair.
Yeah.
You're going to want to search for that.
You're going to want to search that if you're not going to watch this movie, but it's a weird film, but the payoffs are, I think they're worth the strangeness. And it's just, you don't get a lot of Phyllis Diller these days. So there you go. Her and Norman Fell, just so sexy on the screen. Moving right along to our 5th picks. This is where we're going to do something special for everyone. For anyone that wants to introduce someone to horror, these are our gateway horror picks. So just the 5th round, we'll be picking something each that helps people get into the spirit. If they're maybe too young or they don't like the genre, we'll see how it goes. And we're going to start with you, Lindsay.
Okay, I am going to go for Tucker and Dale versus Evil from 2010.
Nice.
Mainly just because this movie is really funny and really, really charming, even though it is playing on the old Cabin in the Woods movie, typical slasher movie that everyone, I think, has in their head when they think of a horror movie. It is Tyler Labine and Alan Tudyk are just 2 rednecks who just want to have a cabin in the woods so they can hang out, go fishing, and I can't forget what they're growing. It's not weed. They're very into horticultural is basically what it is, or bees or something.
Yeah.
But it is surprisingly gory than you think it's going to be, this silly comedy, but it has actually a lot of heart, as in you really, really fall in love with Tucker and Dale. And it switches stereotypes on their head. And I still say most days, we've had a doozy of a day.
Yeah, I love this movie. I watched it numerous times. It's one of those where you just love the 2 leads. They're just so great. And even though I'm not crazy about the last act of the film, I love all the stuff leading up to it. How they keep dispatching themselves and the rednecks.
Accident.
They're just being like haunted by these people.
Yes.
It's so funny. And Alan is amazing in this role, I think.
Yeah, I think you forget how funny Alan Tudyk is, because I think he gets sort of cast as the voice actor now, but he is really, really funny. If you've ever seen the British version of Death at a Funeral, he's one of the best things.
Oh yeah, when he's naked on the roof and he's
my God.
So funny. He's great. Fearless actor.
He's great. Yeah, and the 3rd act maybe doesn't work as better as the first 2, because the last act has to kind of turn into a proper horror movie, and it has the reveals have to happen. But when you're just like having, I think, can't remember, Tucker or Dale thinking the kids are in this weird death cult because they keep killing themselves, running away from them. It's amazing, it's charming, and I think even if a lot of people think they don't like horror, they're going to find these 2 enough charming to get to the end of the movie and actually take them through, because it is just that charming, where as well as having all the horror tropes that you know and recognize, or you think you know and recognize. So that is my pick.
Excellent.
Nice.
Carmelita, what's yours?
So I'm going with a classic, but I think because it had a remake, that there's probably a lot of people have seen the remake, but not the original. People of a certain age probably all grew up with this, but I would imagine like younger generations maybe haven't seen it. I recently revisited it for the first time in a very long time. I had seen it when I was a kid. It's Village of the Damned from 1960.
Oh.
I've still never seen the original yet. That is a great idea.
I picked this for a gateway because it's sci-fi horror. So the premise, for anyone who maybe didn't see the remake or hasn't seen the original, a sleepy village falls unconscious for several hours, every single person in the town. And when they wake up, they find all of these women of the town are now expecting. And all these pregnant women cannot explain how this has happened. And the children that are born are all freaky and hive mind and creepy. It's just such a great premise. And I think because it's 1960, they don't go into the ins and outs of the pregnancies or where babies come from. So this is something you could show kids.
Right.
Yeah.
It's not going to go too far into the weeds of something you don't want to have to explain later. And it's not too gory. It's a lot of it's psychological. The kids kind of have the stare. And that's enough to send all of the adults into panic, scared for their lives mode. There's just so much tension. George Sanders in this, Barbara Shelley. I really enjoyed revisiting this. It had been too long, and I was so happy to rewatch this and just marvel at how effective it is at being creepy without having to really show or do that much, honestly. It's really cool.
Yeah, I've been keep meaning to watch the original because I keep going back to the remake and I don't love the remake. I think I just love Carpenter's score on the remake.
Yeah.
And they don't really go into the ins and outs. They just go, and they're pregnant. But it'd be such a really good one because it is really good drama. I think the BBC have also done a new miniseries on it even. So yeah, I think it's got its third official remake, which I keep meaning to watch because I do love the idea of the story of these hive-minded, pale children just staring at you and able to cause like absolute havoc, just with very little effort.
Ooh, I don't know. It really hit me this time in a way that it didn't hit me as a kid. What a nightmare it would be if I just like came to on the floor of my apartment and then this time next month realized I was pregnant. Like I would be horrified. That's terrifying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't want that.
No. And even if you, well, with America's climate, had to keep it. And then it's just this little pale child. Oh my God. It would just be a nightmare.
Scary.
It's
terrifying.
scary.
And there are some really great moments of showing like what these parents are going through in trying to bond with these children, even though their origins are mysterious. Some of the parents in this film, they want to love these kids.
Yeah.
Even though it becomes clear pretty soon after they're born that there's something not right.
Yeah. I mean, I have that anytime I pick my daughter up from school, I see some of the kids and I'm like, no, not that one. Also,
I did not get a hive child.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Also, I mean, kids do ruin naps. So this movie is very on point. I love a nap. And once you have a kid, it really ruins it. So
naps are done.
Yeah.
No more naps.
No. Anytime I go, I'll just relax for a second. My daughter's like, will you peel me an apple and get me some chips and make some popcorn? And I'm like, geez, this is like a job list. And I was just trying to relax here. Excellent pick, Village of the Damned, 1960?
60.
Yeah. I'm going to go with a classic one just because I think I just heard someone on a podcast talking about it and it reminded me that I loved this so much. I watched it all the time. It's The Adventures of Ichabod and Mr. Toad from 1950.
Oh, yes.
It's just gorgeous. It's perfect for October. I don't know why I had access to it, but I did. I think we just had it at home and I watched it so much. I was obsessed with the look of it, how spooky it was. I think it has a creepier sort of feeling than some adult stuff. I think it's perfect for showing little kids because like my daughter, she's very in tune to how people feel in movies and just people in general. So if someone's stressed out, like she hates Disney Pixar movies because they put you through these emotional paces before it come together. And she's always just throws her hands up and she's like, why do they always do this? Nobody likes each other. And I'm just like, hey, buddy, it's supposed to like come around. Everyone loves Encanto or whatever. And she's just like, ugh. But this movie, it's just got the dread and kind of terror, and Ichabod's just so wonderful. So yeah, just a little animated classic here in the middle of the drafts.
No, it's gorgeous. It's perfect.
It really is.
The mood, the aesthetic. I love the animate. It's a classic for a reason.
Yeah.
It is. And the frog saying Ichabod at some stage when they're ribbiting, they go Ichabod.
Yeah.
Ichabod.
Yeah.
Just those little details that just make it so airy. Yeah.
Yeah. And he's hearing things like the reeds and the leaves, and it's all creating this pastiche of spooky feelings. And it reminds me of when Like, I would introduce people to movies all the time when I was young. And once I discovered the first Evil Dead, I had two friends named Megan, and they came over and I showed them Evil Dead. And then they had to walk home 2 blocks in the fall with the wind and the leaves. And they just started running at one point because they were just like freaked out that this unforeseen evil was chasing them. And this is like the kid version of that, I feel like, part of it before you actually see the Headless Horseman. So, well, that brings us to number 6 pick. Lindsay, what do you got?
I'm going to go for a movie that actually at the time did get some Oscar attention, which is very strange, but it's really hard to get your hold of at the moment. So I'm kind of glad that I've got my shitty DVD, and that is Shadow of the Vampire from 2000.
Oh, yes.
Nice.
If you've managed to see this movie, you know why it's a great movie. And I hope if you don't, I hope you can find it. It's an amazing cast. I mean, this has John Malkovich. It has Willem Dafoe, who I think was nominated for Best Supporting Actor. It has Udo Kier. It has Kerry Elwes. I mean, it's just one of those, you kind of wonder how they all got them in a room. Eddie Izzard's in it. She's amazing. It's essentially about the making of the 1922 F. Murnau Nosferatu. And there was always this rumor that Max Schreck, who played Nosferatu, was an actual vampire, which I don't think Murnau discouraged because he liked the idea of people thinking that he actually found an actual vampire. So it takes that a premise of, if you did actually have a vampire in your movie, what would happen? And the amazing line of, you ate the cinematographer, I needed him. You could have killed the script girl. Yeah, that kind of thing. It's incredible, and everyone is incredible in it. It's got a really cool gothic German expressionist tone to it.
Oh, cool.
Which I absolutely love, and all the performances are absolutely fantastic. That is my 6th pick.
Yeah, that's awesome. This is a movie that I saw at our little art house theater when it came out, and no one I knew went and saw it, I think because it looks like an old movie. And I was just like, it's really good. And people, and everyone I knew was just like, yeah, I'm not going to see that. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, like, everyone's so amazing. Like, Willem Dafoe, this is hardly your picture any longer. It's just so good. And then I saw comedian Stephanie Weir on Mad TV. She does her version of the Nosferatu from the movie. And it is one of the funniest things I've ever seen. She looks hilarious in the bald cap with the teeth and everything. But anyway, I love Shadow of the Vampire. I think it's really great.
It's excellent.
It's solid.
It breaks my heart that it's so hard to find.
Yeah, I have a crappy DVD too, and that's it.
I do not. I miss it. I miss this movie.
Hopefully I'm not going to cause you another sleepless night, because you have said that you've had sleepless nights over not being able to find a movie.
No, I already went through it with this film. I haven't done my usual dig to find a copy.
Yeah.
I think because there's a part of me that I can't wrap my mind around this not getting a new release.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's perfect for it. I mean, Nosferatu was a movie that wasn't really particularly in copyright because it was a illegal knockoff of the novel Dracula. They were hoping if they called it Nosferatu that Mrs. Stoker wouldn't notice and wouldn't sue, and she did notice, and she did indeed sue. So I can't imagine a movie about the making of Nosferatu being, for some reason, having some weird rights issue. But yeah, especially considering it did actually get a bit of attention when it came out.
It did.
And there was even it was an April Fool's joke, but it broke my heart that Willem Dafoe was going to play Nosferatu in David Eggers' Nosferatu, which he's been trying to get made forever and can't seem to. And it was like, no, that was just a joke. I'm like, don't joke about that with me. If Willem Dafoe is playing Nosferatu again, you don't joke around with that, because I get excited.
I'm ready for more vampire films.
Yes.
I'm ready for another wave.
Yeah, we need another
vampire film. We need another wave of vampire films.
All right, Carmelita, what is your number 6?
City of the Dead, 1960.
Ooh, back in the 60s again.
This movie is
right.
It's so good.
The vibe is just perfect for Halloween. Perfect.
So
for
perfect.
October.
Mist everywhere.
Yes, there's mist everywhere. So it's directed by John Llewellyn Moxey. It stars Christopher Lee. I mean, come on.
Royalty.
So college student wants to do research on witchcraft. She is given a lead that she can go to this New England town, I think Massachusetts, I believe, to research witchcraft. Turns out there's still some black magic practitioners in the town. And so it's got it all. Misty, foggy cemeteries.
Yeah.
The site of where witches were burned. It's satanic mass. It's got all of it. I love it. I just feel like the mood it's just so perfect for this time of year.
Agreed. I love this movie.
Me too. This was such a surprise. I can't remember. I heard it was probably on some podcast, and they sort of said spooky 1960s Christopher Lee, and I'm like, yes, thank you. And then it didn't begin to describe what I expected from this movie. I mean, that hotel, I mean, holy shit, you think the Norman Bates Hotel is bad, but this is just one of those truly atmospheric, amazing. It's so gothic, it feels British in a way.
Yeah.
But it's very set around Salem. I think around Salem, so around where all the witches were burned. So it's got that feeling to it. It's absolutely incredible.
Yeah, this is something that I've only watched once with the sound on, but it was so visually perfect, like Carmelita said, that I would just have it off and just be listening to music and doing stuff. But it's like every time you look, it's just like, yeah, this fits. This is good.
No, that makes total sense because it is visually stunning. It is black and white, but they're so masterfully shot, and the use of the light and the shadow. And again, like we said, like the mists, and it's beautiful. It's a really fun watch. This too, maybe someone who's maybe not little kids, but adults that don't think that they're really into horror might be able to get into this one.
It does trick you because it doesn't feel like it's going to be a horror movie. And before you know it, you're subtly, oh, wait, I'm in a horror movie now.
Perfect. And so that was City of the Living Dead?
City of the Dead.
City of the Dead.
Would pair well with City of the Living Dead, I would have to say. It does have a vague Gothic Italian thing going on. So you could pair it with the Fulci and just kind of have a good night.
I think that my brain went there because my pick is Rat's Night of Terror from 1984, directed by Bruno Mattei. And Claudio Fragasso.
Oh, geez.
Yes.
Sorry.
Yeah, it's a post-apocalypse survivors battling hordes of flesh-eating rats. It also stars Garetta from Demons, features some of the same sets as Sergio Leone's Once Upon a Time in America. It has a great ending. It's one of Bruno's, I would say, more comprehensible films, and it's quite funny if you watched it dubbed. If you watch it not dubbed, I don't think it's something that you'd necessarily poke fun at, but dubbed, it's like comedic, the line deliveries and stuff. It's unfortunately very, very funny. Because it is Bruno, I will say if you love rats, maybe don't watch this movie. Yeah, there are some questionable rat handling that happens here, or motivation even for the rats, but I love post-apocalypse stuff and it counts as a horror film, so I was like, perfect. Rat's Night of Terror is getting on there.
Another great title.
Yes. Yeah, I agree.
Did not know that. I thought if Bruno Mattei and Claudio Fragasso made a movie together, then the universe would explode. But it didn't. So there you go.
Yeah, I love rat horror. I did a Ratter Day, was a themed day I did for 31 and 31 one year. So I had like Rat Man and a bunch of other horror rat movies, but I didn't own this one yet. So this year was the year of Rat's Night of Terror.
The year of the rat?
Yes, year of the rat for me. Lindsay, what's number 7?
Number 7, I'm going to go with one of my favorite Hammer horror movies, and that is Plague of the Zombies from 1966.
Nice.
This is really fun. It is 2 years before Night of the Living Dead. And also there's a scene where I swear it feels like a hint of Fulci's Zombie, where it's kind of more like a dream sequence where the zombies are actually coming out of the earth, because it's very much more the voodoo zombie idea of what we think of as the voodoo zombie idea of people just put in trances so they can essentially be slave labor. But it is just a fantastic kind of gothic manor who's doing something dodgy at the castle above in the manor, which is very Hammer. But this time it's with a whole bunch of zombies. But no, I'd really recommend it. It's really, really solid. More solid than you think it's going to be, because it's kind of getting a little bit later in Hammer run, which when they started getting a little bit questionable, and when I started really, the more sleazy of a Hammer movie, the more I generally like it. But it's not quite this sleazy yet, but it's definitely, they're having to feel like they have to up the ante a little bit. So they're making the zombies gooey.
Awesome.
I mean, who doesn't love a gooey zombie?
Exactly.
Yeah, that's not one that I have watched. I had it on my list and I haven't checked it out, so I'm putting that at the top here. Perfect. Carmelita, what's your number 7?
So I never stop talking about this movie, but I'm not going to apologize because it features my new favorite witches ever since I saw this movie. They're my favorite witches. It's in Fabric from 2018.
Oh, yeah.
The department store witches are like my favorite thing. So this film really is kind of a story told in vignettes following the various owners of a cursed dress. Directed by Peter Strickland, who I adore. Every Peter Strickland film I've seen to date, I've loved. I just really love his aesthetic and his style and just his approach. And in Fabric, it's got this kind of the European feel to it. It's colorful, it's dark, it's sexy. There's some humor sprinkled in throughout. It's just, and I mean, who doesn't want to see a cursed dress ruin the lives of everyone that puts it on? I mean, that's a good time, I think.
Yeah, I also love movies that when someone tells you, they're like, "Oh, it's a cursed dress movie." And you're like, "Well, how could that be any good?" And then you watch it and you're like, "Oh, that's how." I
No,
didn't know how it would work, but you nailed it. That's
no,
exactly.
because the dress will just follow you around and just go, "Hey," which is my
Yeah.
favorite thing about it. No, I love Peter Strickland as well. Everything he does, I've absolutely adored. Fatma Mohammed, who plays the head department store witch, which is just the greatest invention. I can't believe there hasn't been more department store witches run around in movies. She's actually the lead of his latest Flux Gourmet, which I think Carmelita's going to love because it kind of
I've seen it.
Oh, you've seen it?
I've seen it and I loved it.
Yeah.
Not everyone's going to love it, but I do.
No, I love it. It just Gwendolyn Christie in that movie, it feels like she's about 7 foot tall, which she might actually be.
Yeah.
But oh my God, it is so witchy. And the more witchy Peter Strickland gets, the more I love his movies. And in Fabric, even though it's very messy because it is literally told in these vignettes, Marianne Jean-Baptiste, who's kind of the main, I guess you could call her the lead, she's in most of it, is fantastic. And because it's just having this dress follow people around, literally just kind of waving in the air sometimes, is incredible.
Yeah, her character especially is a middle-aged divorcee who's trying to get her confidence back, who's wants to get back to being herself, not being a wife, not being a mother, but just being a woman in the world and confident. And the red dress is so symbolic of that. Buy a sexy red dress or a little black dress, whatever that society has sold us is going to make you feel good about yourself. And so for them, the dress to be cursed, I mean, a cruel twist of fate.
It is. And the fact that you just so often you'll just go back to the department store witches and I'm like, oh, can I just go there and hang out with them?
They're my favorite. They've got these awesome Victorian Gothic Lolita dresses on.
Yes.
And their
and the
hair
massive
and
hair is just
their mannerisms. They do all of this coordinated hand waving.
Come to us.
Mannequin sex magic in the back. It's just it's a good time.
It's a good time.
Yeah. Perfect. My number 7, I went with Bewitched. This is from like 1981, I want to say. It's the same director that did Hex, Boxer's Omen, and many great Shaw Brothers horror movies. I don't know how to say his name, so I'm not going to say it right now because I don't want to murder it out of respect for him. But it's about a man who murders his daughter while he's possessed. Features rad gore effects, optical effects. There's spiritual guru wizards that are like doing spells to each other. Really cool. I love the Jiang Shi, the hopping vampire movies, and so this is a little different than that, but it's very much my thing. Shout out to Unsung Horrors, who reminded me of this movie. I'd seen it so long ago, and the new Blu-ray from, I think it's from 88, is gorgeous. Like, I mean, what I saw before was trash. This is like, when you see these movies from the Shaw era, the colors pop so much, and they just do so many cool effects with how they could. There's pre-CG or whatever, and it's just like when they're restored and they're in the actual colors, the intent of these artists and directors are realized the way that we have never seen them represented. It's fantastic. I love Hex a lot. Bewitched is another favorite now. Just watching the two wizard guru guys do their spells and their veins are popping out at different parts. And I don't know the language or the culture or the roots of these spells they're doing, so it's just all new to me, and I love to just sit back and just be blown away by something. So that's Bewitched. Highly recommend that one.
You said the magic word wizard.
Yes. Yeah, I don't know what they call them.
I'm in
Yeah, it's cool. They all have different styles. Like some of them paint stuff on their faces, some of them it's like jewelry and stuff. It's cool. It's all very cool.
I've seen Hex, which I really like, so I'm definitely going to be checking out Bewitched. But no, 88 films and Eureka have been doing some amazing stuff with Shaw Brothers and classic Hong Kong movies, and it's been great. So I'm going to have to check this out because this looks amazing.
Which brings us to number 8. Lindsay, what do you got?
You know what? I'm going to go for another pre-code horror because that is where my heart will always be. But I am going to go for Edgar J. Ulmer's Black Cat from 1934, which stars the Titans Boris Karloff and Bela Lugosi. Bela Lugosi is actually the hero in this, which is dark when you think about what this movie is actually about. It is very loosely based on the Edgar Allan Poe Black Cat. I've never actually read the Black Cat, but I've seen so many adaptations of it that I actually have no idea what the actual original plot was about. But it is creepy. It is, they do this amazing thing where it took me 3 times to actually realize what the whole movie was actually about, with the cults and the incest and possible cannibalism, because they don't explicitly say it, because even in 1934 with pre-code, which was getting away with a lot, could not get away with this what happens in this movie with the incest.
Incest and cannibalism is where they draw the line.
We draw the line. We're just going to do all these euphemisms around what they're actually doing, but we can't exactly say explicitly what they're doing, which I thought was hilarious. But no, it is such a great movie. I think it's like most Universal horror movies, it's like an hour 10, if that, and they pack so much into it. And just to watch Boris and Bella on screen, and then to you to realize that Bella's actually the taller one out of the two, that Boris was actually a very short man considering he was Frankenstein. It's a really amazing, I mean, I accidentally owned this movie twice because I love this movie so much.
I get it. I have 2
No
ghoulies
shame.
too, so I understand.
Yes.
It happens.
Yeah. Okay, Carmelita, what do you have?
For my 8th pick, I've got The Skull from 1965. It's an Amicus Productions movie directed by Freddie Francis. It stars Peter Cushing, Christopher Lee, Joel Bennett. The premise of this, it's actually like an adaptation of a short story that I haven't read, but this man with an academic interest in the occult procures the skull of the Marquis de Sade.
As you do.
And the skull seems to be cursed, or he's heard tell that it's cursed or possessed. Bad things happen when the skull is in your possession. People die, freaky shit happens. The whole vibe of this film, I love how you can just throw out the name Marquis de Sade. That right there tells you a lot of what you need to know.
Yes.
The skull is so corrupted by having been the house of the brain of the Marquis de Sade, that it's this, this evil entity unto itself. It's just so bizarre. It's all very a gothic house. The house that Peter Cushing's character lives in is, I mean, it's unreal. I would move there in a heartbeat. It's like every room, there's like artifacts, like all these occult artifacts and like all these leather bound books that line the wall, and all of his antique furniture and his black and purple hallway.
Gorgeous.
Yeah, it's a fun one. I like, the effects in this are very simple, but I think very effective. You get skull vision.
I love skull vision.
That's amazing.
Vision. Yeah, it's a fun one.
I've been meaning to watch this for a while because I knew it was Amicus, and I've only seen the Amicus few of their anthologies, which I love because they're always going to have Donald Pleasance, Peter Cushing, Christopher Lee, all these guys that you love from that period of British, well, just any filmmaking from that time. And and the skull has been on my list, so that's now going up. I didn't realize it was about the skull of the Marquis de Sade.
The Marquis de Sade.
Yeah, I'm adding that to the list too. I have not seen this. I think we had the tape in my dad's video store. I was looking at the cover here, but I never checked it out because I don't think I was aware of really what it was. I just was like, oh, I'll get around to it, but I didn't. I also love that you went from a cursed dress to a cursed skull movie.
Yeah.
That's good.
I couldn't help myself. It just so captures like that gothic, spooky vibe. I mean, that I love year round.
Yeah.
Let's be real.
Same.
But that I want to share with everyone, especially this time of year. It's got all of that, and it's just really cool. Very artfully done.
Yeah. I love that. My number 8 is Catacombs, aka The Curse 4, The Ultimate Sacrifice. This was released in 93, but it was made in 88, so it's funny that it's a sequel to a franchise that didn't exist. Made. I love that. It has nothing to do with the original films. They just tacked it on to try to move more copies of it, I guess.
Sure, why not?
Yeah.
The original company folded, but who got it? Charles Band and Full Moon. So it's a Full Moon movie. I mean, not to put down Full Moon movies. I love them, but it looks like an older kind of, dare I say, classier, some might say Hammer horror kind of thing. It features monks and possession and castles and lots of rocks, and it's got super old horror vibes. Daniel Epler of Cobwebs podcast might be a fan of this one. I'm not quite sure, but you should check it out for sure. And yeah, it's just great actors, cool sets, nice gags. Lots of basically this man who might be possessed or a demon or something is locked away under a church kind of situation. And then the next batch of monks, I think they're called batches of monks, are kind of like living there and whatnot. And they discover this dude, and he can move stuff with his mind and all this kind of thing, and he's scratching people. It's very classic gothic horror, but done in the 80s. And I don't know, there's just something about it I really like. I don't think it really has an official release. I got it on a 4-pack with Cellar Dweller and Contamination 7. So it's a bummer. And the cover of it makes it look like there's like spiders and stuff, but there's not. It's just this crazy guy that might be a demon. I highly recommend it. I just rewatched it for this. I thought I was just going to put it on and be like, I remember kind of liking this. And I was like, no, I really like this. This is super fun. It's way classier than I expect it to be. So yeah, just a little love for Catacombs.
Nice. I need to track that down. That sounds amazing.
It's really fun. I love the creativity of special effects pre-CGI. It's just especially when they're having to do stuff like you said for the skull, where it's probably in camera effects and things. And it's like just the creativity and how people's brains had to work. In fact, even like the movie The Gate or The Gate 2 with the tiny little people, and a lot of it people don't realize is forced perspective. And when you see you can see the making of Gate 2 on YouTube, it's unbelievable where they put the camera, what they put in front to make it look like these regular sized people in suits are tiny. It's just, I love all that stuff. So in this one, he's like whipping stuff out of people's hands and crucifying people and stuff. It's pretty cool. It's very cool, actually. Which brings us to number 9. Lindsay, what do you got for number 9?
I'm going to go for another 2020 movie that kind of got forgotten about because it was 2020. But I'm going to go for His House.
I was thinking of this earlier when you were talking about Atlantics or...
Yes, yeah.
I was trying to remember what this movie was. I'm so glad you picked it.
I was going to choose one or the other, but I'm like, screw it. No, let's just do both. This is a British movie directed by Remy Weeks. It is about a refugee couple. I don't want to butcher their names because they're really amazing actors.
Oh, good.
Who are coming over from, I don't think they ever say what country it was, but somewhere in Africa. They're fleeing war. They've arrived in Britain and trying to claim asylum, which because of that, they kind of have to jump through all the hoops to get citizenship, because otherwise they could be deported. And so they're taken to this really kind of falling apart council flat that has holes everywhere. It's falling apart. I guess you could say the trauma of what happened to them hasn't left them, and it manifests into actual ghosts in this house, which I love. A haunting story when it's not about the house, it's actually about the people. And so they can never, wherever they're going to go, it's going to follow them.
Right.
And it does have some generally terrifying moments and some super sad moments. Matt Smith actually plays their caseworker, and he does a really good role because he's completely dispassionate. Like he just is tired and just doesn't have enough energy to even care about these people that he's meant to be trying to be helping. It's basically like, you have to live in the conditions that we assign you. You cannot complain, because if you do, you will be deported. That's pretty much the thing of it. My favorite moment isn't actually a horror moment, is it's a married couple and the husband really wants to become British. He wants to leave all the old ways behind because he just can't deal with the trauma. And it's him sitting in a pub, and everyone knows he's different. It's not just the color of his skin. It's the fact that he doesn't have the accent. He doesn't have the mannerisms. He doesn't have the movement of everyone else around him. And it's this really kind of sad, alienating thing of, he's there with a beer and a pint, and he's really, really trying, but everyone else is just looking at him like he's this foreign alien, which is a brilliant way of actually showing the refugee immigrant experience of just like, oh, it's not just the color of your skin that means you don't belong. It is everything about you. And his wife is wanting to cling to her culture because she feels she's in a place where she knows she doesn't belong. So it's a heart-wrenching movie, but it's so good. It's one of the best horror movies I've seen in the last couple of years. It punches you in the face and doesn't stop.
I agree. It has imagery that is just in my brain. Like I can just recall it all the time. And that's really a strength for films, when they can show you something that years later, with all the hundreds of movies we've crammed into our eyes, you can just recall, that floating room image that's like bright orange. And
like the seaweed coming out of the wall. I don't know. It's
And you said it so well about Matt Smith's character, because it's like he's at the point where he's thinking of the people he works with. When he's in the room with them, it's not a person. And that's a real thing that happens to people in social work, is you go with the best intentions and you're there in service of that person while you're in that room with that person. And at a certain point, you've gone through it so much and you see so much of humanity just repeating and the system failing people. It goes from person to shifts to people. And then it's just a sea of like, I can't really connect to all of this anymore. That's like where his character is. It's very sad to see. And just the relationship of that couple, I love them so much. And what goes through for her trying to find connection and everything. It's like you can extrapolate that to anything. Just your own personal feelings of being lonely or being different, or lots of times Sarah and I are places outside of Portland, small towns, where people are just like, where are you from? It's like, I'm from this state. And they're just like, you're not like people here. And you're like,
you're not from around these parts. That kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's really weird. That's a great pick. I love that movie.
I haven't seen that one. I keep scrolling past it and I want to see it.
This year.
And for whatever reason, I just haven't yet. So I need to do that because it sounds great.
No, it is. It is a punch in the face. It's not like that Sounds of the Skull, which is very dark. It sounds like you're going to be elate because it's so gothic and so kind of monkey to sadness. And this one, you're just going to have a contemplate afterward.
Sure. Yeah. Because there's a realism to it. I mean,
there's a very much
real world issue.
And it's not being subtle about it, but it is really good.
Nice.
Well, the title again?
His House.
His House. There we go. Carmelita, number 9.
9. I can't help myself. I had to throw a Cronenberg film in here.
Oh boy.
Rabid from 1977.
Ooh,
perfect. Yes.
So earlier Cronenberg. The premise of this one is a woman in a motorcycle accident has to undergo this emergency surgery, and they do some kind of experimental procedure, and she ends up with a creepy phallic growth and a thirst for blood.
That happens.
As you do.
As you do. So we get the body horror that so many of us enjoy from Cronenberg. I think I was kind of going back and forth between this and Shivers.
Yeah, sure.
But I decided to go with this one because there's a lot of outdoorsy shots and they're clearly in Toronto. It has a more fall vibe, I think.
Yeah, Shivers, they're mostly in the apartment building, aren't they?
Exactly.
I do get these two movies confused in my head. Yeah.
There's definitely some parallels, some similarities.
Yeah, for sure.
I love how this film, we're following this woman and some of the people in her life, and she's not wanting to hurt anybody. And she's kind of aware, but kind of in denial. It really hits, I think, too. Anytime you have like a public health crisis, there's a lot of parallels that you can draw to a film like this, whether it's Hep C or the AIDS crisis, or in our most current news, COVID or monkeypox, like that idea of the difficulty of being someone out in the world and having this infection. It's a great film. I really enjoy it. It's lower budget than the stuff he would go on to make, but I think all of the juicy Cronenberg style and the themes, it's all there. It's just a little earlier in his career.
I always find it interesting that his earlier movies almost do tend to be a lot more viral, as in nature.
Yeah.
And nature, like he is dealing with, they're kind of sexually traumatic disease because he's always about body horror, and his early movies are very sexual, and she is running around the mall in Toronto just like almost aggressively, she is biting people, but at the same time it's very sexual in nature.
Yeah, there's a seduction in her hunting.
Yes. And I always find that really interesting that he did move to sort of more body horror that was the absence of sex. Like each time you get to Dead Ringers, which is so cold, there is no sex. It's all about sex, but it's not. It's so cold that it's not sex. And you get to his earlier movies, even The Fly, it's such sexual pulp. It's all about the human connection and what you can spread to other people, which, I watched Rabid at the beginning of COVID, which was a dumb thing to do because I'm just watching this going, this is actually happening. This is real.
This was one of the last Cronenberg movies I saw. I was a huge Cronenberg fan, but I knew of The Brood and Shivers, but nobody talked about this movie. And so it was such a pleasant surprise to be like, I missed one. And then like get to watch it after, this was pre-History of Violence, but like, so he was still my Cronenberg, the body horror guy. And so this was an absolute blast to find. I was just listening to, I don't know which podcast it was, but they were talking about how Cronenberg would often cast leads that look like Cronenberg, like roles that he could play. And once they said that, I was like, oh my God, like so many of these men are versions of David Cronenberg. Like,
it really is. I think I read that somewhere and I went, oh my God, he's right. In Scanners, it is Rabid, Shivers, especially The Brood, because that is much more autobiographical in some respects than a lot of his other movies. So when you're just him interpreting a divorce, you're like, of course you did, David. Yeah, I get it. I completely get it. And he is having all these stand-ins, and it's just like really disturbing, like going, this is the role you would play.
Yeah. Which is funny because he's a good actor. I mean, I love him at Nightbreed, and you know, whenever he pops up, I'm like, what a treat. Oh, crony. My number 9 is Wasp Woman from 1995. It's a remake of Wasp Woman from 1959. That was also known as Forbidden Beauty. It stars Jennifer Rubin. It's directed by Jim Warnowski, who did Chopping Mall and so many other super horny movies. Is this movie horny? Yes. Does it have severely dated CGI? Yes. Does Jennifer Rubin morph into a giant wasp with breasts? Yes. It's the horny answer to the 1950s version, and it's pretty fun. It's not a masterpiece by any means. It's hard to track down. Did I pay $20 for a DVD copy of it? Yes. I just had to celebrate this. It's like those 50s movies with the creatures, and it's, you know, despite the fact they use some CG, they build like a 9-foot tall wasp woman that she turns into. And just in case you can't quite picture what a wasp woman is, it's a giant wasp that has breasts. So she doesn't like slowly morph like in The Fly. She becomes, every time she's going to feed, a giant hairy wasp with wings and huge legs that are stomping around.
And breasts.
And breasts. They really make sure you realize she's got the breasts.
Well, it is Jim Wynorski, and if anyone is going to put boobs on a wasp, it's going to be him.
I get it.
Yeah.
The weirdest thing about it is there's 2 or 3 scenes where Jennifer Rubin is on top of a man. They're having sex. She is completely naked. But when she becomes the wasp, it's got this little wasp like bustier that's covering her nipple. And every time it's almost worse. Like I was just like, but like what? Okay.
So wait. So when she's in her human form, and her breasts are exposed,
regular breasts,
we see the whole thing.
All
pasties. It's not covered. We see nipples.
All of it.
But not the wasp breasts.
No. And I guess because then you would think about wasps breastfeeding. I'm not sure. But it's just so funny because it's like close-up shots because it's Jim Warnowski. He can't help himself. But he's of the wasp, and it's undulating, and it's in a bustier kind of situation. And you're just like, what? I'm so confused. But am I proud to own this movie? 100%. It's a weird one. It's so hard to find, and I think it's one of my favorite things in the Halloween time is to kind of celebrate these strange, weird movies that you probably wouldn't put on in the summer or something, but like during this time of year, you can test out these strange waters with a film with a woman who becomes a giant wasp creature. And really, the only update they're doing here is Jennifer Rubin's in it, and the breast mount, I guess, is all Jim Warnowski was like, yeah, I'll remake it. And they're like, oh, cool. So you like update it? And he's like, yep.
I'll put tits on it.
Yeah. Like, you know what I do, right?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Anyway, that's Wasp Woman from 1995.
Nice.
Lindsay, this is the 10th. This is the final round.
Oh my God.
I know. You have about 6 movies that are about to fall off your list. So
I do. I think I know what I'm going to do, though. I would be upset if this movie didn't make my list. And that is, of course, Dead and Buried, 1981, directed by Gary Sherman.
Nice.
Now, this does have a few really good Blu-rays, because it is actually a surprisingly beautiful movie, considering how dark this thing is. But if you want a creepy Halloween town that is super creepy, I mean, I love a creepy town, and this, I can't remember what the town is, but I should look it up, but it is super creepy, and this movie is amazing. I love this movie. I just sink into it, even though it opens with a pretty horrific death scene that really makes you go, holy shit.
Yeah. It knows how to set the table right away.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. There are high stakes. And then even first time I watched it, I didn't guess what was happening until it was revealed. I was like, oh, I should have guessed that. It's got a way of you getting so involved with the characters that you don't necessarily want to find out what's happening. And then when you find out, I'm again not spoiling a 40-year-old movie, but it is very sad. But again, beautiful, just, and so much fun. I mean, the effects and the gore and the body parts are actually really well done. So I will definitely say that, especially a hand that gets stuck in a car somewhere, and you're just like, why is that hand there?
Yeah, this is a movie that we had the tape, and I didn't watch it for the longest time because it just felt stuffy. The cover of it just seemed like it
the cover's weird.
Yeah, it didn't seem like it was going to be fun or enjoyable by any means. And then when I finally watched it, I was like, well, I was wrong. I guess I shouldn't be trusting all these covers. Death Stalker.
Yes. He's still sitting there waiting for his pig man to show up.
I feel so mad about that. Carmelita, what do you got for number 10?
So this is a fun one. I don't watch a lot of horror comedy, but every once in a while something captures
Oh, yes.
my image. And this film does it. It's Double Date from 2017.
I don't even know what this
Have
is.
you heard of this?
No.
Me neither.
Oh my God, this movie is so much fun. Okay. Double Date from 2017, directed by Benjamin Barfoot.
Barfoot?
I believe so, unless I have a typo. Let me double check. Let's double check, shall we?
No, it is Benjamin Barfoot. Yeah, that is his actual name.
There you have it.
Like a barfly, but with a foot.
Okay.
This is a great premise. So a young man who is still a virgin, he's coming up on his 30th birthday. His very horny and outgoing best friend wants him to get laid. They've been striking out. And then they meet a pair, these sisters who are out on the prowl.
Okay.
And they're thinking that they've really scored here. And what they don't know is that these sisters have been looking for virgins.
Uh-oh.
Never a good idea when you're looking for a virgin. Well, never's going to end well.
No.
For a ritual that they're looking to perform. It's really cool. Like the first half of this film is really kind of more on the comedy side. And it's a lot of the comedy is centered around the experience of dating and hookup culture and people trying to connect and how difficult that can be. And the experience for women that are out in bars and for the men. And so pressures that the men feel about performing and the pressures the women feel about the pressure from the men to put out. Like it's this whole thing. And it's genuinely funny. There's some great music in this film too. And there's an intensity because everyone's kind of in a rush. These young men are in a rush to get these women in the sack. And these young women are in a rush because they're on a mission. And so it's easy at the beginning to just kind of laugh along with it and enjoy these quirky characters. And then as you enter into the second half, we get into the horror of it all. It's a really fun movie. I really enjoy it.
Hey, it's going on the top of the list.
Me too. This sounds amazing because I do actually love
It's
a
cool.
really good horror comedy. I just think they're really hard to do. So when you actually find one, you need to like hold it tight.
Yeah, no, this one is really fun. The cast is great. You get the relationship between these sisters. You're slowly unfolds. What are their motivations for the things that they're doing? And these young men who are clearly best friends, but have very different approaches to their social life and socializing with people. It's a fun one. It's funny. It's gory at times, but there's always kind of this sense of humor.
Yeah.
There's some intense violence. It's cool. It's a good one.
I almost had Snatchers on my list because I just love that comedy and the female friendship in that movie. But I was like,
Vag Cannon.
Yeah, that kid. But I've talked about it so much. I was like, okay, maybe not on this list of 10, but I almost had a horror comedy as well. That's great. So that is Double Date from 2017.
Correct.
Awesome. My 10th pick. Oh, geez. So I had two movies, but I said if no one picked it, I would say this one. Okay, I'm going with Next of Kin from 1982. Yeah, yep. It's an Australian horror movie that stars John Jarratt and Jackie Karen. A daughter arrives at her mother's home for the elderly, and she starts reading her journal and begins hallucinating things, or maybe not. It's so super dreamy, and I had like a bad DVD of this for the longest time, but Severin put out a Blu-ray of it, and it's gorgeous.
Nice.
I love this movie. It's moody. It's got cool dream sequences, which always wins me over in films. It's very colorful. It's stylish. I love the acting. It's a wonderful little film from Australia.
It is filmed in Victoria, actually.
Oh.
Yeah, my neck of the woods. It's a gorgeous, gorgeous movie. I still get very upset at the Sing Sing when you just got like all the taps running.
Yeah.
I'm like, that is just such a waste of water. Come on, people. But it is very dreamy. John Jarratt looks like he's 12.
Yes.
And I love all the performances, and it sort of feels very colloquial until it's not. There is these shifts in tone all throughout. This is a fantastic movie.
Yeah.
Gotta love the real, not real.
Yeah.
I love
Yeah.
dreamy, trying to all that real psychological stuff.
Whenever films are just showing possible descents into madness, I love because it just gives them free reign to do whatever cool, weird stuff they want to do. And I love that.
No, this movie takes full advantage of that. You fully don't know because it's after the death of her mother, I want to say. It's been a few years since I've seen it. And so there's a diary involved and you just don't know because this is a retirement village. People would die more than normal. But just the way that the situation, oh God, it's so good.
Yeah, it's really, really good. Does anyone have one thing they wanted to shout out that didn't make their list? Because I have one that I'm about to do.
If I start, I might not stop.
Okay.
I've got one. I'll do one.
You go ahead.
That is Theatre of Blood, starring Vincent Price, Douglas Hickox, 1973. It is the Muppets if they did a horror movie. I love it. Just go watch it.
Theatre of Blood. I love that.
Theatre of Blood.
Nice.
And then I wanted to, this got knocked off by Next to Kin, but Soul Survivor.
I've been meaning to see that. Yeah.
Yeah, this cover is amazing. It haunted me as a child. It's not at all what the movie is. It's a tale of a lady who's the only survivor of a plane crash, and then the dead are kind of stalking her. It's Final Destination meets It Follows before those films ever existed. I love the 70s aesthetic of it. It's just subtle. She sees a little boy and she's like, "Hey, are you all right?" And water is just pouring out of his sleeve. And you're just like, what is this? And like, it's beautiful. It's moody. It's creepy. I love the aesthetic of it. Soul Survivor is just, it's fantastic. Not a lot of people have seen it. Code Red put it out on Blu-ray and it looks wonderful. So yeah, I just wanted to squeeze that on there.
Excellent.
Yeah, so there you have it. Over 30 horror recommendations to get you out of your fiendish funk. Lindsay, where can people find you?
They can find me on Schlocken01 at Twitter and Instagram. And if they want to follow me, it's just Reading Geek on Twitter as well.
Excellent. Carmelita, where can people find you?
So I am on Twitter and Letterboxd, same handle for both at Carmelita Says.
Yes, and a fantastic follow, so please follow.
There it is. Well, thank you both for being here and participating in this on such short notice. As always, I'm Dirk Marshall, and you can find us at VHUS_podcast on Twitter and Instagram. I hope the three of us helped you find some films to entertain you and freak you out. If you watch them, please let us know. Until next time, this has been VHUS.